Hey everybody, this is the Meme Team podcast where we talk about the logic behind virality, because marketing isn't just logic, it's culture, and our podcast decodes both. So Amanda is off this week, hopefully enjoying her vacation. So we brought on Christina Garnett again to talk about what went viral this week. So welcome.
Thanks for having me.
If anybody saw the Silverstone Grand Prix yesterday, they would have noticed that the winners won a Lego F1 Cup trophy. It was the first time that one of them had won. And so they kind of joked about that, like, oh, wow, out of all the trophies you win the Lego Cup trophy. And he was very gracious about it. And he said, actually, my daughter's going to have a lot of fun with it. So that was pretty cute, I think. And it shows how you're working together in different ways can be a lot more fun than just doing the obvious thing.
No, I love that. I think it also shows that it's not about the splash. It's about the actual collaboration and partnership. And so instead of Lego having like one big viral moment and calling it a day, they want to be fully integrated. And you can kind of see this playfulness with it. And I think it also is really helpful because obviously F1 is growing its fan base, but Lego being a part of it makes it family friendly almost immediately.
Yeah, definitely. That reminds me, I was seeing like in the race, they're announcing the Disney partnership that's supposed to be coming in 2026. So something to look forward to there.
Absolutely. I think I'll be very interested to see how they play with it, but I think it'll be really cool. F1 has all this momentum and they have a lot of brands that are tapping into it and trying to do it holistically, which is always really lovely.
Yeah. So that's the perfect segue into our first topic, which is expanding to new audiences. I want to talk about how women, which are now reshaping sports marketing and F1 culture in general. And I want to talk about who's doing it well and like what other massive opportunities there are there. So F1 and Motorsport just came out with their 2025 F1 Global Fan Survey. There's a huge demographic shift happening. 3 out of 4 of the new fans are women, with Gen Z making up over half of that. And it isn't just changing viewership, it's transforming how the brands are approaching sports marketing by trying to come up with new ways to authentically engage with them. Pre-race engagement has been growing for race days. It's gone up to 61%, and their content creation ecosystem is also thriving with about 70% increase in Gen Z daily engagement. It's also enabling the brands to come out with new products. We saw that Aston Martin just announced a nail polish collaboration, and they also did a matcha tea experience at the race that Lance Stroll was seen drinking. And then McLaren is partnering a little bit more in depth with Lego and Android. Mercedes has come out with streetwear collabs and women first collections. Red Bull has been integrating gaming into it. And Ferrari has seen a lifestyle pivot for a lot of their products with the fashion houses that they're working with. Sponsors are saying that this is enhancing their experience by about 76% and 37% increase in how many people are buying merch. So one thing I wanted to talk about here in terms of merch is that it seems like F1 is taking it a little bit more seriously in terms of like who they're partnering with, but then also in directly going after their female audience. One thing that this called to mind was how the NFL has kind of been, dealing with their rise in female viewership. Obviously Taylor Swift had a huge hand in that and bringing that over. But one of the things that I remember happening during the season was that one of the wives of a football player for the San Francisco 49ers, she made outfits for herself. And then I think she sent one to Taylor Swift, who, wore it at one of the games. So what we're seeing is kind of like the difference in how they're viewing and reacting to their female audience, whereas F1 seems to be, really trying to work with them, as we saw with like Aston Martin. We have, football, NFL, not really doing that. If you're trying to grow your audience and welcome new people, new demographics in order to grow the sports, to grow the sponsorships, grow the brands, grow everything, you have to be willing to customize and personalize the things that are going to work and attract them, because everything that's going to work for the male audience is obviously not going to work for the female audience. A huge thing here is that, women have a lot of spending power, right? Like we saw that during Taylor Swift's tour. So the fact that they're going into these new sports franchises as fans and are trying to like buy stuff to feel included and to feel like as part of the sport, is opening that up for sponsors. So for sponsors that are being smart about it and taking advantage of that, they're going to see a rise in their popularity.
No, I love that. We still obviously hear about the WAGs, the wives and girlfriends, for those who don't know what WAG means. But instead of like that being the only lens in which to see women at the races or the women in this world, I love that they're turning F1 into a lifestyle brand. They want it to be deeply integrated into your life. And how else can they do that? By collaborating and partnering with these brands that you want to be a part of your life. You want to wear the colors of your favorite driver. You want to be able to celebrate. And then what they're doing, like Aston Martin with their fan made campaign, I'm in love with it because it really taps into fandom in a way that is thoughtful and appreciative instead of like, we're going to try to own this. Like, we saw you do it and now we're going to try to make it our own. Instead, their language is very clear. It's, we see you. We see you decorating your nails and doing it in this Aston Martin green, but you know what we're gonna do? We're actually gonna like make it for you. So it's technically like the actual Aston Martin green. Or we're gonna do a matcha pop-up where you can go in and you can be a part of it. And it's not that like they thought it would be cool. They saw and were doing social listening and seeing fans talk about it. So there's such a deeper connection and relationship that they're building with their fans by saying, we are giving you opportunities for access. Aston Martin, they're tapping into this direct to fandom conversation. Like they call them drops, which is what musical artists have been doing with their direct to fan kind of motions, where if you connect with us, we're going to give you access to things so you don't have to go through a third party. You get access to, maybe it's a tour, low amounts of merch that you can grab that's like first come, first serve. But whatever it is, F1 is saying very clearly, we want you here and we see you and we want you to be yourself. We see what you're doing and we celebrate all of it. And that is just a really powerful way to talk to somebody, because now they feel seen, they feel heard, they feel appreciated. And now they want to wear their fandom as a badge of honor. They want the merch, not just because they want to celebrate that team and support them, but you've let it become a part of their identity. And instead of like ridiculing them for it, you're praising them for it. You're celebrating them for it. And that's a really powerful move for people who want brand affinity.
Yes, yes. I love how you say that. I want to call out that what they've called their campaign is called fan made.
Yes.
So they're just very clearly on the side of their fans. So I love that they're doing that because it's just such a great way to make women feel included. I also want to highlight that we've also seen that they're not just supporting F1, the sport, but they're also supporting F1 Academy, which is the women's race and championship that's happening concurrent to the F1 Cup, along with F2 and F3. I started watching the documentary on Netflix as well. I have some quibbles about how they go about their storylines, which don't get featured in like the Drive to Survive. But one thing I noticed there was that they have some of the same sponsors, Rolex, Louis Vuitton, and all that, but they also have like makeup brands that are sponsoring some of the teams, which I thought was like really interesting, where it's like, okay, yes, we'll get some of, the main brands that usually sponsor, the male cars. I don't want to call them male cars because they're not specifically for men. It's just that the men happen to drive them. But you have Charlotte Tilbury, I saw, was one of the sponsors. Yeah. They're going about it in a different way in order to appeal to the women. And then obviously you have, the drivers themselves they're like the spokespeople for the brands as well. What I really like about that is that usually there's this idea that like you can't be girly when you play sports. So I really like that the Ferrari driver was like, no, like I wear the lip gloss and I wear like the makeup and stuff. One doesn't have to mean one thing, right? Like you can be multiple things and have multiple facets to your identity. And I think a lot of women relate to that, right? Where it's like, I can be super girly, but I can also like, sports. And that doesn't seem to be a thing that we're seeing happen in the F1 fandom that I kind of see happen in, American sports like NFL and baseball, right? Like we see a lot of the time women on social media complaining that when they tell, a guy that they're a fan of a sports team or, a player, they get like really, aggressive about it. Like, oh, prove that you're a real fan. And that's like not happening here. And I wonder if part of the shift is because so many people are new to the sport, right? Because of Drive to Survive, that it's like, well, there's so many new people anyway that, some of them were bound to be women. So I think more of the separation happens with like what people, consider themselves to be like longer term fans versus the new, Drive to Survive folks. And then that just includes all, the women anyway. So it's like you have the men also fighting for their lives because they're like newer to the sport and fandom as well.
Yeah, I think there's something there for sure. I mean, if you think about it, this is one of the first times we've seen this really massive expansion and exposure to a sport for a lot of people for the first time. Maybe they had heard about like the race at Monaco, but like that was never going to be their life. And
Right.
now as it's become more proliferated in the US, everyone's kind of on the same entry field, like all Americans being introduced to F1 for the first time. Everyone's kind of on the same playing field. Yes, I know people who've been F1 fans for a really long time, but
Hmm.
they're random. Like they're not the norm. Like that's not the average viewer, especially in the States. I think
Yeah.
the other thing that I really love is that you can tell that they're paying attention. You can tell that they're looking at the feedback. And like what you were talking about, especially as like I live in nerd culture. I'm a massive
Hmm.
Virginia Tech Hokie fan. Like I love my basketball, I love my football, I love sports. And I've also been the person who's like had to answer like the 20 questions, like will prove your fandom.
Yeah.
Or I get included, but it's a pink jersey.
Yeah.
The thing that I loved the most about the Aston Martin nails was that they weren't pink.
Yeah.
I was so excited. They're like, you did this without pink washing? I
Yeah.
was immediately on board. I'm like, what do
Yeah.
you mean you paid attention? And you realize that we weren't just asking for pink. Because there's so many brands who are like, fine, we'll do something for them. We'll make a pink hat. And
I
you're
mean,
like,
it's an
that's not what I
October
wanted.
tradition, right?
Yes.
Everything
Yeah.
pink is just like for women, and then that's what you
Yeah.
wear, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's part of what I liked mentioning earlier with the wife of, the 49er who was
Yeah.
making outfits that like fit her and
Yes.
like that look good on her. And when you're wearing them, it's not just like a t-shirt. Like
Yeah.
I mean, I won't lie. I do not buy sports stuff because I don't wear t-shirts. Like if I'm going to go to a game, like I want to look good.
Yeah.
So I've bought like things that I've found that like make me feel still like me, like I'm fashionable and like, feminine and all that. So I agree. Like the fact that they went with green, like mind blowing that they like went with that because you're right. Usually it's like, oh, let's just make it pink,
Yeah.
I think like so many of these other brands have like um colors that could like work just as well, if not better, right? Like Ferrari, imagine
Mhm.
a like stiletto like lipstick, and nail
Or do
polish
like a
and stuff there.
Louboutin, like a Louboutin
Right?
Ferrari. Yeah.
Exactly, right? Like there's so many brands. And like a thing that they already have going for them is the fact that they already work with such like luxury brands, right?
Yes.
Like Louis
Yes.
Vuitton, Tag Heuer, like Rolex, like
Yeah.
those are all these like fancy ass brands that, women are the ones that are shopping for those in the
Mhm.
first place mostly.
Yeah.
So it's like they should take this opportunity to start creating more products for them.
No, I love that.
Awesome. Well, let's move on to the next topic.
So the one thing that I've been seeing all over my screen is Superman. It's coming out on the 11th. I'm very excited. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm a big nerd fan. So I'm obviously ready to go. But the thing that is really like different for me is that Superman, the cast, James Gunn, their social team, they understand who was paying attention to them on social, who was paying attention to them offline at these installations. And so they're finding all of these different key moments to tap into everybody. So like
Mhm.
I've seen so many TikToks where the Superman cast, like the main players, are doing like TikTok trending meme content. Like they're tapping directly into internet culture. And that's great if you're chronically online and you get the joke. But then they also have this massive Superman like figure that's just like hovering within like at the crux of the shard,
Mhm.
just looking over protecting the city. Like that's not a chronically online moment. That's a look up in the sky, it's a bird, it's a plane, no, it's Superman. Like that is what we're talking about. And so I love that they are doing that. But I fear for all these other blockbusters that are coming out this year, how many of them are actually going to do like 50 different TikToks? Like on this press junket, like you're gonna know every single TikTok like viral sound because we're gonna do something to each and every one of them. Like I don't know how many cast members are actually gonna be like, okay, fine, let's do it. But the Superman team is like all in. Like they're very playful. You can tell that they're not just acting and doing the part, like they're getting into it. They're having fun. There's a video and it encapsulates everything I love about fan culture and about fandom and about how brands can tap into it. I think it was in Manila, but it shows like James Gunn and it shows the cast like David Corenswet for Superman, and it says something to the effect of it only took us one event to realize we were filming the wrong way or we were filming in the wrong direction or whatever. And so David Cornsweet picks up the phone and he turns the camera perspective around so it actually shows the people that were at the event. So it's showing the press, it's showing the fans, and then it goes to this event and you see all of this fan base so excited. Some of them are dressed up as Superman. There was a dog that was this little white dog as Crypto.
Crypto.
Like it was so beautiful. And then there was one I saw where the little boy was called Kal-El. So he's named after Superman. His mom is there to take him. They invite the kid on stage. He gets to hug David Corenswet. Like it's such everything I've seen is such a love letter to the fans. And it has this level of kindness that is very Superman coded that it just really hit me. So like for all of the movies that are coming out for like Fantastic Four and Jurassic World Rebirth and all of these things, it's just really lovely to see this hyper focus on you love this character. We've made this for you. And so like going back to like our previous conversation around fandom, it's just so lovely to see them get it.
Yeah, I think one thing too I want to call out here is how much power they're giving to the social media
Hmm.
people that are creating these videos. There seems to be a lot of trust with the cast members. Like, here, I'm explaining to you what you're gonna do. Like one of the ones that sticks out is not just the the Full House video we just talked about
Yeah.
last week, but the one where they did it's like the mannequin challenge, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like they're all like, posed in these like,
Very
ridiculous
uncomfortable.
positions,
Yeah.
but they're doing it and they're trusting that this is gonna work towards
Mhm.
like the marketing of the
Yeah.
movie. So I thought that was really funny because it's like um they're doing something different. That like I mean it goes viral on TikTok, right? Like we all know the memes, but this time like the cast is actually participating in them and willingly and like, happily it seems,
Mhm. Yeah.
which is good because it's like making it seem as if like they're authentically involved in it. We've had some other promotions that like you can tell that their heart's not really in it, right? Like you can kind of see in their eyes like, why am I having to do this?
Yeah.
So I generally like that they're authentically involved in the process. But yeah, I think more importantly for me is like they're trusting that the social team knows what they're doing. And they seem to have like the power to like do that, because with other social teams like it just seems like, oh, I'm acting on top of what's already available to me, not that like, hey, we're creating an actual marketing strategy
Mhm.
involving the social marketing team. Moving on to marketing topic number 3 is we're just kind of seeing movie marketing move towards meme culture. So the example I wanted to give is the Running Man promo strategy with Glenn Powell, where he kind of does the morning routine that Ashton Hall went viral with. I think what really stuck out to me, it was usually when you see this, it's you have the influencer just kind of doing it on their own, and at the end it would be like a Running Man like promo. So they'd kind of like input some themes or like stuff that people would recognize into the video. But with this one, Glenn Powell's actually participating in it. He's doing the ice plunge. He's doing the running. So I think that was what made it go even more viral, was that he was like participating in it and was kind of like playing on the joke that like, we all kind of laughed about it when it first happened. So the fact that they kind of like tied it into like the movie made it look like made it funny, and is what like I think made it go viral. So a couple key stats there. His original morning routine got over 40 million views across all platforms, which is kind of wild to think about. Powell committed to the bit, and it's dropping 4 months before the actual like movie. So it was to me is I think it happened like either the day of or the like right before the actual premiere of the movie trailer came out. So it's like they were already priming people to pay attention to Running Man or like anything, coming out at that point.
I think for me, so I'm a massive Edgar Wright fan, who's the
Mm,
director of Running Man.
mhm,
And so I think it also plays into he knows his fan base. Those movies of his may not necessarily all be making billions of dollars, but they have a cult fandom. He did the Cornetto trilogy with Simon Pegg. He
mhm,
did all of these other movies. And so I think it speaks to he knows his audience is going to get the joke. And there is, like you said, there is this understanding of the commitment to the bit, and like we're having fun here. And the other thing too is I think it also plays well with just the concept of Running Man and like the story behind it. If you look at a lot of Edgar Wright's pieces, even the ones that are like super funny and don't feel like they would be serious, there's social commentary in all of them. Like
mhm.
every single piece has social commentary if you look deep enough. And so I think tapping into something that everyone saw, especially during like the economy that we have now, I think it speaks directly to like what is happening in Running Man, and also like what are we saying about society as a whole when we look at this meme culture, when we look at the glorification of these like 20-step morning routines versus you got to pay your bills and you got to feed your children and you got to do all of these things, or else you're put in a position where, and then I won't spoil what Running Man's about.
Yeah. I mean, I think we can tell what came out in the trailer.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the trailer is basically he enters a competition where it's so funny because so many of like recent movies that have come out or shows, Squid Game, you have The Purge, just all these films about a dystopian future or like, pushing the boundaries of what's like legal or not legal to do in society. The original movie came out in the 80s with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Mhm.
So the fact that they're redoing it now, it seems to be like the perfect moment for it, which is kind
Yeah.
of wild to think about.
Yeah. We haven't
Especially,
we haven't learned anything from the dystopian movies
I
we
know.
got in the 80s. We've learned nothing. We are just
God. Well, even
edging
back
closer.
then. Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. So it's funny that it's kind of like it's seeming to fit like the moment. So it
Yeah.
shows another element where you're saying where it's like the social listening that's like happening with more of the like movie studios where it's just like they're paying attention to culture and like
Yes.
what people are talking about at that moment.
Yep.
And the movies that are able to tie it into something that's happening with either like their stars or memes like this. I mean, I called out last week how Jonathan Bailey wore the
The slutty
Friends
little
hat.
glasses.
Yeah, and
Oh.
the little glasses, right? So
Mhm.
he was just kind of like dressing up to like yeah, so that's a different one, right? Where it's like
Yeah.
him with like the little glasses, right? Where
Yeah.
it shows that either he or his team
Yeah.
is paying attention to, all the thirst traps that are happening for him. I hope it's his team and not him because that would just be
That'd
super
be a lot.
awkward.
But also shout out to Blakely Thornton for coming up with the slutty little glasses, because it's turned into this like entire thing. He's even
Hmm.
Jonathan Bailey even is launching like an eyeglasses company
Oh
that
my God.
has like makes the little glasses. And so like got to give Blakely his flowers for coming up
Yeah.
with this. And but internet culture, like it really is this burgeoning thing that is
Hmm.
just it's impossible to ignore now. Like if you want to tap in, you have to tap in, like literally.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that one of the other things that I, saw recently was Ryan Gosling in the Project Hail Mary trailer with like the rimless glasses, right? Like
Yep.
I think those are going to be having a comeback
Yeah.
soon because he's wearing them. So it's just like all these things that you start to wonder like a chicken and egg thing here, right? Is the culture creating these like memes or are the memes then informing the culture, right? Like
Yeah.
it just kind of keeps going round and round as people start noticing these like Easter eggs and are on the lookout for them, right? Like
Yeah.
they don't just want to watch the movies anymore. Like that's not good enough now, right? And it's not enough to drop one like trailer, right?
Yeah.
You have to be dropping all these things beforehand, and honestly you can't blame them because the way that the news cycles kind of function these days is like there's
Yeah.
just not enough attention. So it's like how do you keep bringing that attention back to your movie, to your show.
Well, they're having to do marketing. They're having to do
Right.
the marketing that like the boring brands have had to do
Hmm.
for so long, where it's
Right.
you can't just write one blog and expect your entire lead funnel to
Hmm.
fill up and everyone to know your name. You have to keep beating the drum. And so
Right.
that's what we're seeing is you have to plant the seeds and send those breadcrumbs so that we're excited about it. You can't just drop the trailer and expect people to come. They like we are seeing with because of streaming basically cannibalizing a lot of the movie theater space.
Hmm.
We're seeing brands and studios literally fighting against themselves. And
Hmm.
so they have to market for both experiences. We want you to see it in the theater, but then I also, whether you saw it or not, I hope you'll see it when it comes on streaming. Like
Hmm.
they are having to market the way that like marketers who have boring verticals have had to market forever. Like you can't just like you don't just drop a press release and then everything goes your way. Like that's not how it works. You have to
Hmm.
do the work. You have to keep pushing the content out there.
Yeah, actually, that reminds me. Hunger Games, the Sunrise on the Reaping.
Hmm.
No, is it that Sunrise on the Reaping? The new movie that they're doing based on Haymitch's
Hmm.
story. They're dropping like who the actors are going to be playing or like who they're hiring to like play the actors,
Hmm.
on kind of like on a weekly basis. You just kind of like,
Yeah.
have them come out. So it's like keeping it at top of mind for me where I'm like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, oh look who they're hiring. And it's like, calling the attention back to it. So I think that
Yeah.
that's another way that we're going to start seeing, right? Like, actually,
Yeah.
I had been thinking about this recently because the way that they did it versus the way that Marvel did it with like the chairs.
I
I
hate
think,
like that was 4 hours.
but I think the
I
way
will
that the
never
Hunger
get
Games
those
is
four
doing it.
hours back.
Right. But I think the way that the Hunger Games is doing it
Yeah.
is a better strategy because you're keeping the
Yeah.
attention and they're doing it in a new way that fits the brand,
Yeah.
whereas like the Marvel thing was just like, oh, director's chairs of like the actors
Yeah.
involved. Like there didn't seem to be a tie-in to like what the actual movie would be. So I think that that's one thing too, where it's like, how are you making the movie or like the universe be
Yeah.
its own brand?
Yeah.
And how are you including the people that like know and like recognize that brand
Yeah.
as like the way that you're promoting yourself, right? Because if you're
Absolutely.
promoting yourself in a way that doesn't make sense for you and the brand, then like people are gonna pay less attention to you, I think. I mean,
Oh
you're gonna
yeah,
get attention because
100%.
it's like Marvel, right?
Yeah. No, I think well, and it got a lot of attention. It like the
Right.
engagement numbers were spectacular.
Hmm.
But I think one of the first teams to really do this in like the social era and like nail it was Knives Out. Especially
Mm,
like the movie that's coming out later this year,
yeah.
and the one that came out, The Glass Onion. Because
Glass
I
Onion.
remember when the new one, the casting news started coming out, it was like almost every single day. Like it became a running joke of like, hey guys, I'm so excited to mention that I'm also going to be in the new Knives Out movie because everyone and their
Yeah.
brother and sister is in this bad boy.
Yeah.
So I think there's that, but I also think like paying attention to fan cast because there's another thing about fan culture is like I do this like my
Hmm.
side gig like not getting paid it's just how my brain works is I like fan cast stories movies shows
Yeah.
like who I want especially in Marvel like who I
Hmm.
want for all these other characters that I know are on the precipice
Well,
that are
I
gonna
see you
yeah.
touting someone for Wonder Woman. You want to tell us
Oh
about
my
that, Christina?
gosh. Okay, so for those who are massive and or fans, you know Adria.
Hmm.
Um, and she's just perfect. If
Hmm.
she's not Wonder Woman, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. Like she's perfect. And she's on James Gunn's radar. They've known each other
Hmm.
for years. He's even come out and said she'd be a great Wonder Woman.
That's right. I saw that recently. I thought
Yes.
about you when that came
Yeah.
out. I was like, oh, Christina,
James
look.
knows. James knows. I have a lot of
Yeah.
faith in James. He is a fanboy. And so
Yeah.
like I know Superman's going to be great because that is his favorite superhero. And so like
Oh, wow.
he's not going to mess that up. Like
Uh-huh.
he's from the Midwest. Superman's obviously from Kansas from the Midwest. So like
Hmm.
he's not messing that up.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of opportunities there to really kind of highlight what that looks like. And he came forward and was like, she'd be a great Wonder Woman. I was like,
Yeah.
yes, she would. Book it.
He's
Book it now.
I also saw one of the hints was that like she's one of the few people he follows on Instagram.
Yeah, and he's like, I've
Um
followed her forever. Like,
okay.
don't look into it. Yeah, he mentioned that. He mentioned that. He was like,
Okay.
guys, I didn't just discover her like
Yeah,
yesterday.
yeah,
Like, I've
yeah,
known her. No, she's great. I think that she has everything that Wonder Woman needs. Like, you have to know that Wonder Woman can kick your ass, but you still want to protect her too. Like,
yeah. Yeah,
I
yeah,
want to hug you and tell you everything's okay, but I also know that like you could destroy all of us if you needed to. Like,
yeah.
there's a level of like vulnerability and strength that Wonder Woman has to have, and that is absolutely what she had in Andor. Like,
Yeah.
flawless performance in Andor. If you haven't
Yeah.
watched it, please watch it. Like that show is
Yeah.
the best
Such a
thing that's
great
come
show.
out of Star Wars in so long. Like please,
Yeah.
please, please watch it. But that's what it is. It's unique, and she's also like just drop dead good looking. Like she's a
Hmm.
10. And so like
Hmm.
that's what Wonder Woman needs to be too. And so she checks all the boxes. She needs to do that. But getting back to my original point, if you're paying attention to where the fan culture is fan casting, that's going to automatically help you. Like everyone's fan casting Bond right now.
Yeah, yeah,
All
yeah.
of us are. Like even the people who are diehards, people who are like, I just saw a couple movies and
Yeah.
I want to have a say. Everyone's fan casting. And so it'll
I
be very
mean, shout
interesting
out
to
to
see
the
who.
Hunger Games team, right?
Yeah.
Because Effie Trinket
Oh, that
was
casting is perfect.
right. I mean, I saw that where it's like fan casting was always, Elle
It
Fanning,
was
and they would
always
have her
her.
in all her like the outfits that kind of like showed her looking like Effie Trinket. So when that, was
That
announced,
happened.
like
Yeah.
exactly, like, so that's another thing like to call out there where it's like because you're listening, social listening, and like a lot of the times the fans have like your best interests at heart, right? Like
Oh
they
yeah,
know
like we
that
love
like
these characters. We want them to be done
exactly.
justice. Yeah.
Exactly. So, Elle Fanning, like, she's a great actress, has like, done great roles and just, obviously fit that, mold.
Yeah.
The fact that, she was then cast as that, made it seem as like, okay, we're paying attention, but she's also like the best person for the job. It's really putting like your ear to the ground and showing that like, you not only care about the property, but also about the fans who
Yeah.
also care about the property. So,
Absolutely. And then in turn, they're going to champion you. They're going to
yeah.
champion the project. Like that's their Elfie. Like that's their Effie.
Hmm.
Like I can't wait to see this. I can't wait to support this. Like
Hmm.
it's such an easy way for all those fans to be like, see, validated. I was right.
Hmm.
I know it should have been the whole time. Like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You can't buy that. Like you
Right, right,
can't
right.
buy that kind of love and support for a project.
Yeah. One downside, though, I mean, let's talk
Yeah.
about Star Wars
Yes.
and like what happens there, right?
Yeah.
Where like sometimes you have the fans just immediately shitting on something because they
Yeah.
either don't like the direction or they don't think that that fits their
Yes.
vision of what the property is.
Yeah.
We've seen that with the Acolyte, the Last Jedi. A lot of the actors have faced
Yeah.
personal vitriol from
Yeah.
fans, which is like awful, not just for them, but it's also making them also feel like they do have power to say like
Yeah.
what where the property should go, right? Like we still have discussions to this day about Ryan Johnson
Yeah.
and like his movie, whereas like you have people that are like, no, that was actually the best movie in the series, and then you have other people just like, no, like you go back to like J.J. Abrams and the way that he did things, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, thoughts on that, Christina, because I know you're
Yes.
also a huge fan of Star
I
Wars.
am a massive Star Wars fan. I think that probably the best way to describe this is compare Star Wars to Jaguar and their new campaign. You have a lot of prestige and legacy with these IPs and everything that they've built.
Yeah.
So if you're going to change something, you have to hold the hand and get them there through really good storytelling.
Hmm.
Star Wars didn't do that. I will say that for the actual record. I love Ryan Johnson and what he did when what he did to Agatha Christie and like murder novels is what he did to Star Wars. The difference is that people wanted the detective story to be tweaked, to be worked,
Hmm.
to be done in a new way. You can't just do that in Star Wars where things are built in a certain way and their relationships in a certain way. So like Mark Hamill having to tell Ryan Johnson, like, no, he would actually be happy when he saw R2-D2. Like he can't just walk by him. He needs to say that. So I'm going to take that side. I'm going to
Yeah.
take Mark Hamill's side in basically everything because I'm a Luke Skywalker girl.
Hmm.
But I think it comes down to you have to blend the heritage of the IP with
Hmm.
how you go in the future. And
Right.
so if you go guns blazing, we're going to disrupt everything, then your fans just here, we're going to throw away everything that you loved about the show.
Hmm.
I think Andor and Rogue One show what Star Wars fans actually want. Is I don't think that there's definitely a whole like racist part of the fandom. Let's like
Yeah.
get that out of the way real
Sure.
quick. But the people who loved Rogue One and the people who loved Andor, there's diverse casting in there. There's a lot of diverse casting in both of those.
Yeah.
But you don't see them as diverse. You see them as these rich characters that are a part of this greater story arc that clearly fit within the world that has been built previous to them, and then they're building on top of it. And so you're able to have Andor do all of these beautiful things and people champion the show, and you don't need a single lightsaber.
That I think that that's kind of what stuck out to me, that it feels different because it's
Yeah.
not involving the Jedi. I feel
Yeah.
like people kind of like the Jedi do not change them. You know, that seemed to
Yeah.
be like the
Well,
main message.
it's a very like the Jedi's a very weird thing. Like, and even
Right.
in the stories, you even have like a gray Jedi, which is going to
Hmm.
be counter to everything else. And then there is the other
Right.
view of not everyone views the Jedi as this like Boy Scout army. Like
Right.
others see them as corruptible or they are
I
flawless
mean,
unless
the
they're
most
doing what
famous
they want.
one
Yeah. So
was corrupted.
yeah. So there's room for all of these things.
Hmm.
I will say though. I find that between like if we're talking about like the new trilogy,
Hmm.
I had a really big problem with that. I loved the first one. Like I loved The Force Awakens. But then from there, everything that I wanted was taken away. So for
Mm.
example, Finn, what they did to Finn, I will never forgive. Finn is set up as the opposite arc as Anakin.
Hmm.
He's instead of coming from a place of kindness and like being raised, he's immaculately concepted,
Yeah.
and then he has a mom, but then he basically winds up being sent off into like this world. He becomes a Jedi and then he gets corrupted. Finn, on the other side, literally starts off in the opposite way. So he's an orphan. He's basically raised to be a stormtrooper. He clearly has issues with that. He struggles, like the idea of killing people. He comes out. He has the opportunity to be the next Luke Skywalker. He has the opportunity to go from stormtrooper to Jedi, the way that Darth Vader or Anakin turned from this Jedi to this dark,
Hmm.
like everything, to basically everything that Jedi stand against. And
Hmm.
so the fact that you had those opposing arcs that could literally look so beautifully crafted together
Hmm.
and they threw it all away, I will not understand. And like I would say that like the Reylo fans are just as toxic as the other fans that like were anti the buildup of that trilogy because you wanted a romance so bad that you're like, you know what? You know what she needs? She needs the sociopath. We
Yeah.
literally know he'll kill her and everyone else in the thing, but like she'll smile at him and he'll change. I'm like, I'm gonna need y'all to hit a therapist
Yeah.
and like leave Star Wars alone.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
so it's things like that. I was like, I wanted Finn. I wanted Finn to have a
Hmm.
bigger thing. I wanted Finn and Rey together. That made a whole lot more sense than Reylo.
Relican. Right.
I can't.
Mhm.
I can't with that. Like,
Yeah.
go get help.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I mean,
Like,
definitely. I mean, I think those are the things, right? Where it's like you get fans that become so vocal for,
yes.
different things, right?
Yeah.
So this is the dark side of social listening, right?
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
can
And they get
listen
very loud. They
too
get
much.
very
Yeah.
loud.
They get very loud and you can listen so much that you lose perception of your mission and your
Yeah.
values and your like positioning, right?
Yeah.
That like it no longer makes sense, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what it seems to have happened to like Star Wars, and we had that kind of happen with, the other properties that have come out that haven't done as well. So to see, and or kind of be like seen as a separate thing,
Yeah.
and do really well at it. The one thing that was like, it's not successful, right? Like
Yeah.
by their standards, right? Like it hasn't had as many views as some of their other properties. But the story is just so good.
Yeah.
And it seems as if part of it is because they kind of let Tony Gilroy do his own thing, right?
Yes.
Where he's like, he
Yeah.
had the story and like this was like the idea.
Yeah.
But then you had like the acolyte, right? Where it's like that person was also given a chance to, do what they wanted.
Yeah. I think I'm going to be controversial for a second.
Okay.
Um, I watched The Acolyte
Uh-huh.
and I like a lot of the ideas that they had in there. The difference for me is the storytelling. I think if you'd given the exact same beats to Tony Gilroy and his writing
Mhm.
team and it said make The Acolyte, it would have been significantly better
Mm.
and it wouldn't have had all the backlash. I find that when a lot of people say like, and I'm not talking about like the hyper racist people. I'm talking about
Yeah.
like the general public who are like, this is a bit too woke for me.
Mhm.
What I hear is all I see is the messaging. All I see is you
Yeah.
putting this character
Fair.
because you don't have the storytelling. So like, for
Yeah.
example, Schitt's Creek. I obviously know it's not sci-fi, but the storytelling and the character development in Schitt's Creek is so good
Hmm.
that you don't see like, oh, there's a message or they want me to
Hmm.
feel a certain ways. You see these really rich characters and you see how they're struggling and you laugh with them and you cry with them and you root on
Hmm.
them. In Andor, same thing.
Hmm.
The
Same
storytelling is
with
so
Modern
rich.
Family, right?
Same with
Where it's
Modern
like a
Family.
huge reason why
Yes.
people, not change their minds, but became more amenable
Yes.
to,
Yes.
gay
Yeah.
couples having children and stuff, is because
Exactly.
it wasn't about
Exactly.
that. So
Exactly.
I
So
get that.
I think the one message would be we got to get back to really good storytelling. And
Hmm.
I think about like the last season of Game of Thrones.
Mm.
That is not hated because like we had a strong woman leader. Like that's not hated because like Danny.
Hmm.
It's hated because Danny went crazy for no reason.
Yeah.
And you could have absolutely gotten there,
Oh,
but you
totally.
didn't with the story. Like you could have got us there. So like
Hmm.
for brands who are listening to this or Marvel, if you ever want to talk,
Right?
it comes down to the storytelling. If you nail the storytelling, I don't see the message. I don't see the strong
Right.
woman or the strong man or whatever. I see a character I want to root on. I see a
Hmm.
hero that's faltering, that's struggling, that's
Hmm.
having these challenges. And so I think because we've had strong women, we've
You're
had
right.
strong black characters before, we've had all these things. But if you are just pushing the content out there and you're not giving it the story and the love it
Yeah.
deserves, then the people who don't want to like it, they're going to see that and be like, see, it's just that. And it's like, no, we've had strong women. Like, we've had all these things. The difference was the storytelling made you root for them. You loved them. You wanted them to be successful. You wanted Ripley to defeat the aliens. Like, you wanted it.
Yeah.
But if the story doesn't make you want it, all you're going to see is, ugh, we have another woman who
Yeah.
thinks she doesn't need a man. I'm like, no, 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 no.
Definitely.
She's awesome. She's a badass. Like, but you got to tell that story. And so that's what I think Andor nailed. That's what I think The Mandalorian nailed for a
Hmm.
while. Like, also, Mandalorian had some of the best women directors. Like, I want Bryce Dallas Howard to get a Star Wars project so badly. She would kill it. She would be such a great director. Like, please give her a
Yeah.
project. And because you know why? It has nothing to do with her being a woman. It's because she is an
Yeah.
amazing director. She did some beautiful, beautiful Mandalorian episodes, and she should be able to bring those to fruition on a bigger scale. And so, but that it comes down to the vision, it comes down to the storytelling, it comes down to like, do I care about these characters? Because if I care about these characters, I'm going to fight for them. I'm going to go in the comment section and fight those racists myself. Like, I'm going to go in there and be like, here's, you're wrong, and here's how. Here's my
Yeah.
essay. But you can't if the storytelling is weak. And the other thing about The Acolyte was I don't know where the budget went because it looked like a CW show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I want to know where the money went. But I feel like
Hmm.
if you give Tony Gilroy that project, same actors, same
Yeah.
beats, same major milestones, and you just let him create the narrative that's
Hmm.
going to hold the viewer's hand to get them there,
Hmm.
you would care about the characters. You would feel bad when
Yeah. I
things
mean, like we
happened.
did with Andor, right?
Yeah, you would cheer. And
Hmm.
so that isn't going to get every single person who hates these shows on board. Like
Of course.
we saw with
Of course.
Ironheart,
Sure.
there was a hate campaign before it even dropped. Like they
Hmm.
couldn't wait. Like Rotten Tomatoes had to remove all of these reviews because it's
The
like it's
negative
not
ones.
even
Yeah.
out, babe. Like it's not even out. Like why are you hating on this? Like those people, I can't help them. Like they have hate in their heart.
Yeah.
But the people who are on the fence, if you nail the storytelling and you make them care, they're going to be all in. But you have to hold their hand and you have to get them through. You can't just like, here's this character, love her. That's not going to happen. That's not going to work.
Agree. Definitely. Um, awesome. Well, do you want to do your last topic?
Yeah, sure. So, in a positive, wholesome note, my kids love YouTube. There is a YouTuber named Ryan Trahan that they follow pretty kind of religiously, and he is doing this thing that I think is really kind of cool, but also like ties into the direct to fan culture that we've been talking about on this podcast. And so he's going to every state in the US. So he's going to all 50 states and he's staying in an Airbnb, like really cool ones at each state. In the process of that, he's doing this massive fundraiser for St. Jude's, a children's hospital. And so throughout these different like challenges and opportunities, you're having major brands like Airbnb did $250,000. You have electric bikes, you have Kia, you have Dollar Shave Club, but they're all specifically donating to this. So the money goes to a good cause. But then in addition to that, they get a shout out. So they get to be a part of this. They kind of get all the benefits of sponsoring the video
Hmm.
and being seen. And like every video has like over 1 million views. So like the reach is awesome. You're going to get a whole core group of people who love Ryan and his wife that are going to be watching this and kind of celebrating their journey. And so it's just a really beautiful way for brands to connect to the creator who already has this massive fan base to be able to do something really lovely. And so like we literally were just talking about, there are very dark corners of the internet that love to hate and just deconstruct and break things. This is a really lovely corner of the internet
Yeah.
instead, where you can help a really good cause and you can kind of cheer on this couple as they go off on all their adventures. And so it's really lovely to see the brands that are tapping into that opportunity to see like how they want to support. And then obviously all the money goes to St. Jude's, which is obviously
Right.
a lovely cause.
Yeah, I love that. I like it because we've been talking a lot about different ways to get your brand out there by sponsoring or like learning new channels, right? We've talked about the out of house campaigns on billboards, and we've talked about the Amazon and Roku TV streaming ads that are coming out. So this is a new way of doing that, of getting in front of, potential customers for a good cause. So there's already going to be goodwill towards your brand for being involved with this in the first place. I would have to wonder, like, how are the brands, like, are they just reaching out to him, or is he and his team reaching out to them? Like, how do they decide which brands to bring on? And like, is there, any involvement in terms of like the types of like messaging? Because we've also talked about allowing your influencer like slash creator to like cook
Yeah.
by creating the content themselves is far more effective than like forcing them to say a certain thing. And another thing of like, as you're kind of like out there as a brand, like listening to what's happening in the culture, these can be like great opportunities for you if you're like paying attention, right?
Yep.
By like finding these types of creators that are doing good things and creating great content, and trying to get on the radar. And like, if there's an overlap in the type of person that you're trying to get in front of, it's a great option to, reach out to these type of influencers or creators to sponsor them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just a really great way to tap in, like you said, tapping into culture, going directly to where the fan base is, and to be able to do it in a really holistic and thoughtful and kind way. I think it's such a positive way for brands to show up. And like you said, it doesn't feel like an influencer campaign. It
Right.
feels like you saw someone doing really cool stuff and were like, how can I help? And
Hmm.
creates a very different emotional response from your audience.
Yes, definitely. So let's get into the takeaways. So for the F1 and female fandom and growing your audience, I think the main takeaway for me is that there are ways that you can make your new audience feel welcome and a part of your fandom. And there are ways that you can make them feel as if you don't want them to continue being a fan.
Yeah.
And I think F1 is doing a great job of, trying to include women in ways that don't just feel like we're slapping pink on a team jersey for you, which has kind of been the go-to for a lot of sports brands out there. So I love that they're creating specific content for women. They're creating specific products for them to buy, nail polish, clothing, the matcha. We'll see kind of where they expand from there as more of these brands start learning like, hey, women have money that they want to spend. Why shouldn't we be targeting them specifically?
I love that. For me, I think it really comes down to that direct to fan culture. So whether it be Aston Martin or Superman, really kind of showcasing that you love your fans and that you want to celebrate them as much as doing an announcement. So if you're a brand listening to this, the idea of like how many posts of your content are celebrating you versus centering your fans. Really look at your content and see how many times are we speaking directly to our fan base? Are we showcasing that we're paying attention, that we're listening? Are you even listening?
Yeah.
Do you have social listening? What does that even look like? And then how are you tapping into conversations that are already happening and showcasing that you're paying attention and that you really care what's being said? I think that that's huge for any brands moving forward, especially when fandom is not going away. It's only going to become more and more prevalent in our everyday lives and how brands talk to us and want to become a part of our lifestyle. And so whether it be tapping into culture, tapping into fan culture, brands need to pay attention, but also realize like, how are you framing yourself as a part of that conversation? Are you trying to own the fandom? Are you trying to take over? Or are you just looking for a seat at the table? And that's going to change how your messaging looks, how the fans actually relate to you. and if they feel seen and heard in the process.
Yeah. For me, I think kind of going into the Superman, but then also the Ashton Hall and Glenn Powell Running Man commercial is how are you tapping into the existing meme culture that's out there? Obviously, not everything is going to fit. You have to find the ones that actually do or touch on the message that you're trying to like talk
Yeah.
about or like relate to the movie in some way, relate to your brand in some way. How are you tapping into the discourse on like the thing that you're trying to sell? And I think that this was kind of like a fun way to do that without being very like in your face, like here, go watch the movie. I think we're getting to the point that people just don't like being directly sold to,
Yeah.
which is why like the trailers just aren't working as like the main promotional tool anymore. So you got to go about that in a new way. And a second one based on that one, and then also the Superman promotional content is that I like that stars, like the movie stars that are, starring in the movie, are actively starting to get involved and aren't frowning upon that or like thinking down on like participating in social
Yeah.
media and like, meme marketing because that's where the fans are. That's what they
Yeah.
expect now. And if you're kind of like side-eyeing it, like thinking you're above it or like too good for it, like you're not like
Yeah.
really listening to like your fans.
Completely agree. Look and see who else is doing really cool stuff. When in doubt, just because it's not on your radar doesn't mean it's not happening. So
Mhm.
really diversify how you're social listening and what's happening, whether it be Google alerts, or if you have kids, you're asking your kids like what's
Mm.
popular right now, or you're asking different peer groups. But I think that this is also a huge opportunity for brands to really diversify how they're listening to different fan groups and not just focusing on one specific generation. Like you shouldn't hyper focus on boomers for the same reasons you shouldn't hyper focus on Gen Z, even though I know
Mhm.
every single brand's doing that.
Yeah.
Every generation wants to give you money.
Yeah.
So pay attention to all of them. And you don't have to tap into all of them, but which ones provide opportunities that make sense for what you're building and go where they are. You can't do this whole, we're going to build this and they're going to come to us. You have to go meet them. You have to
Yeah.
go be accessible. You have to go show that you care. We can't do this like gatekeepy sort of brand vibe anymore. It doesn't work. If Ferrari wants people's money,
Yeah.
even though they can't afford a Ferrari, then you, airmen, can like pay attention and be like, oh, you know, like it's the gatekeeper brand thing. Like you can't all act like that. And so if Aston Martin can say like, hey, here's a way to be a part of us, even though you can never afford a DB5 or a Vanquish, so can you brand, so can you.
Yes, I love that. I think my takeaway is there are different ways for you as a brand to spend your money to get in front of an audience.
Mhm.
It's not enough to just kind of, be in a magazine or like
Yeah.
use Google ads. Like now is the time to kind of explore different fandoms and different
Mhm.
ways, different creators that are out there that are speaking to the type of person that you want buying your product. And then just being thoughtful about it, about
Yeah.
like reaching out to those brands and like trying to form a like relationship so that you can kind of co-brand and like build off of the momentum that they're already building without having to do it all by yourself. Like just think about unique ways to get in front of people. Well, that's the Meme Team podcast episode for this week. Follow me at Sonia Baschez on Twitter, Threads, Instagram, LinkedIn, and all that. And then follow the podcast at Meme Team Pod on Spotify and then Meme Team Podcast on YouTube. And then thank you to Christina for being here this week. Please tell us about your book, which talks about all this about social listening and community
Yep.
building and talking to your fans.
Yeah, so it's transforming customer brand relationships, and it dives into all of this: behavioral science, game theory, fandom versus brandom, social listening, community building. And so it's a really great opportunity for anyone who basically wants the end all be all playbook of how do I actually form relationships with the people and the audiences that I want to cater to? How do I build that? How do I do something other than just create a newsletter or send out an email burst or whatever that looks like? And so it really goes down into the emotional side, the psychological side, and how you tactically build those relationships over time.
Yeah, and then I'll say because I got an early copy of it. The book itself actually goes into
Mhm.
steps that like you can take as a marketer to actually do this, right? Like a lot of marketing books out there, they kind of talk about the theories, like here's what social listening is. But Christina's book actually tells you if you want to like social listen, here is how you can go do it for your brand. Obviously, it's not going to tell you exactly what you can do, but how to kind of tailor it for your brand and for you to do the work yourself. And I found that to be very useful because there's so many ways to do marketing these days. So hearing about it from a top marketer that's like built up her brand and actually has been doing the work for, her whole
Forever.
career, and is
I'm
still
old
doing it,
forever.
right? Yeah, and is still doing the work, has been far more useful than just kind of reading about it from people that aren't actually practicing the marketing anymore.
Well, I'm so
Awesome.
glad you enjoyed it. Thank you for reading it.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't wait for it to come out. So it's coming out in September,
Yes, so September 3rd in the UK and September 30th in the US.
and can you already pre-order
You can
it?
pre-order it on Kogan Page. You can use Kogan Page 20 and get 20% off.
Awesome. And then I saw you talking about doing book tours, so I assume
I
you're
am
going to
doing a
announce
book
where you're going
tour.
to be going.
So there's still some pending, but the goal is to have online as well as in-person events. And so we're going to have a couple events on the East Coast. I'm still working to see if London is going to be one. Ideally, that would be fantastic. But different opportunities for us to connect with each other and essentially get the band back together to meet
Yeah.
all of my people, so that we can celebrate all of the work that we're doing and celebrate the book.
Yeah. Well, Amanda and I would love to see you if you make it out to LA.
I need to, that is technically my fourth. So
Oh,
that's
hey.
I'm working. So we're trying to make LA work. If not LA, San Francisco.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody, and we'll see you next week. Bye.